All right, let's dive right into this explainer. We're looking at what is honestly the ultimate historical cold case, the enigmatic Voynich Manuscript. If you love a good puzzle, you are absolutely in the right place. We're talking about a 600-year-old illustrated codex that has completely, utterly defied translation, making it one of the most famous undeciphered texts in human history. Just think about this for a second. What if there was a single book that literally defeated the greatest code breakers in history? I mean, we're talking about the brilliant minds who cracked complex enemy codes during World War I and World War II. Heavy hitters like William Friedman, who led an elite team of NSA cryptographers in the 1950s, or British codebreaker John Tiltman. They all took a swing at this manuscript, and every single one of them failed. It is just this impenetrable fortress of text. And just look at this. We're stepping straight into a totally alien world, plunging right into a true historical detective story. The pages are packed with these crudely colored, fantastical illustrations of unidentified plants, bizarre root structures, and this beautifully flowing yet completely unintelligible script. Researchers actually call it Voynich cheese because it doesn't match any known alphabet on Earth. So, like any good detective story, we gotta start with the tangible crime scene clues, right? The physical evidence itself is fascinating. Carbon dating from the University of Arizona confirms the vellum parchment dates back to between 1404 and 1438. So, boom, we can absolutely rule out a modern forgery. It's written in standard iron gall ink, left to right. But here is the crazy part. There are almost no scratch-outs or corrections. None. Whoever wrote this or copied it did so with immense fluency, which is incredibly unusual for complex medieval manuscripts. Now, based on the crazy illustrations inside, researchers have basically carved the book up into 6 distinct sections. We've got the herbal section with those strange plants, the astronomical section featuring zodiac-like symbols, the cosmological section full of circular diagrams, a pharmaceutical section showing small containers and plant parts, the dense stars or recipe section, and finally, this highly peculiar biological section. Keep that biological one in mind because we are definitely coming back to it in just a minute. Okay, let's track the suspects and map out this manuscript's wild journey through history. The earliest confirmed owner was actually a 17th century alchemist in Prague named Georg Baresch. From him, it was sent in 1665 to a Jesuit scholar in Rome at the Naja's Kircher. Then it essentially vanished. It sat hidden in the archives of the Collegio Romano for centuries until a Polish book dealer named Wilfrid Voynich acquired it in 1912. After bouncing through a few more hands, it finally landed at Yale University's Bionic Library in 1969, which is where it still lives today. But here's where it gets kind of juicy. How did Wilfrid Voynich actually get his hands on it? For years, Voynich spun these super romantic, secretive tales about discovering the manuscript buried in chests inside an ancient Southern European castle. Sounds great, right? Well, modern research reveals he actually bought it during a highly discreet private sale from the Society of Jesus in 1912. They were short on cash and quietly offloading holdings to the Vatican Library. Voynich was sworn to absolute secrecy about the deal, which really just cranked up the book's modern mystique. To really grasp its historical weight, though, we need to rewind to a very specific number, 600. According to a letter from 1665 that was literally tucked inside the book's cover, the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolf II allegedly paid 600 ducats for this manuscript. It's believed he paid that massive sum because he bought into the myth that it was created by the legendary 13th century English philosopher Roger Bacon, or maybe brought to him by the occultist John Dee. Now, those authorship theories are totally discredited today, but that 600 ducat price tag, that shows just how highly valued this mystery was, even 400 years ago. All right, let's talk about the text itself, because codebreaker Prescott Currier made a massive discovery here. The text fundamentally changes depending on which section of the book you're reading. It's a true linguistic duality. He identified 2 distinct dialects. Language A pops up mostly in the herbal, astronomical, and cosmological sections. Language B completely dominates the biological and star sections. It's literally as if 2 different scribes with different vocabularies, or maybe even different domain languages, wrote the book. And if we interrogate the code even further against natural languages, the stats are just mind-boggling. In languages like English or Arabic, word length varies wildly, but in Voynichese, word length is incredibly uniform. Linguists say it's actually more akin to the monosyllabic nature of Chinese. On top of that, standard vowels seem to be completely missing or unclear, and the grammar structure, it is incredibly rigid compared to the flexible standard grammar we see in everyday human languages.
Because of these bizarre statistics, people have thrown every possible theory at the wall. Is it a complex letter-based cipher? Some kind of archaic shorthand? Maybe steganography, where the true message is hidden inside meaningless text? Some argue it's a constructed language or even a transcription of glossolalia, speaking in tongues. And of course, there's always the persistent theory that the whole thing is just a very elaborate, extremely expensive medieval hoax. But despite decades of relentless effort, every single one of these decipherment hypotheses remains completely unproven.
But hey, this is where it gets really exciting. Contrast that ancient medieval vellum with modern technology. Computer scientists Servana Reddy and Kevin Knight unleashed unsupervised machine learning algorithms on the text. Using a two-state BigRam hidden Markov model, which is basically a statistical tool that hunts for hidden patterns, they proved the text is definitely not random. The algorithm found hidden linguistic structures, specifically a rigid word grammar where the last character of almost every word belongs to one state and all the preceding characters belong to another. It's this unique A*B format. The fact that it's structured heavily implies it holds real meaning.
Now, remember that biological section I flagged earlier? It is infamous for these totally bizarre illustrations of naked women bathing in what looks like green pools, interconnected tubes, or some sort of stylized plumbing. For centuries, people just assumed it was about astrology or alchemy, but recent analysis is taking a much more human-centric view of these specific drawings, which leads to a massive paradigm shift that just dropped in 2024. Australian researchers Keegan Brewer and Michelle L. Lewis published a fascinating paper in the peer-reviewed Social History of Medicine. Their conclusion? They propose that the main subject of the book is actually sex, and that the central illustration is a complex, stylized depiction of conception. They argue the manuscript is a Renaissance medical manual, intentionally encoded to hide women's health, reproductive, and gynecological secrets. Remember, these were highly taboo and often heavily censored topics at the time.
And this medical manual theory actually syncs up perfectly with the physical and stylistic evidence. Even though we can't read the text, historians have meticulously analyzed the cultural references in the illustrations, stuff like the architecture of the castles in the background, or the specific styles of clothing. These visual clues strongly point to a connection with the Alpine region bridging northern Italy and southern Germany. That drops the manuscript right into the heart of the early European Renaissance's medical and scientific awakening. So, why does all this matter? Why are world-class academics and amateur internet sleuths still obsessing over a book nobody can read? I think medieval manuscript expert Lisa Fagan-Davis really hit the nail on the head. She said, the fact that it is a unique writing system adds to the appeal. Who wouldn't want to be the first to crack it? It's the ultimate allure of an unsolved cold case. Even if it turns out to just be a book of medieval herbal remedies, the sheer genius of its encryption has elevated it to absolute mythical status.
And here is the coolest part. Yale actually put high-resolution scans of the entire Voynich manuscript online in their digital library, completely free for anyone to view. You can literally go look at the exact same pages that stumped World War II cryptographers. So I'll leave you with this to chew on. After 600 years of silence, will the manuscript ever truly give up its secrets? Or is the greatest lesson of the Voynich manuscript simply that some human mysteries are perfectly designed to remain unsolved? I highly encourage you to go check out the archives yourself. Who knows? Maybe you'll see something the rest of the world has missed.